They say you don't notice the small things until they start to pile up. That's how erosion works, right? A little water, a little time, and suddenly the stone is gone. That's how it started with Claire. I didn't catch it at first. At least, not consciously. But the cracks were there. Cracks I only started to trace when the silence became louder than the conversations we used to have. It began with the way she stopped touching me. Not in a dramatic way. There was no slammed door, no screamed accusation, no bitter monologue about needs not being met. It was gradual, like she was trying to fade out of our marriage without waking me. Her fingers no longer brushed my shoulder when she passed me in the kitchen. Her lips barely touched mine when I left for work. Sex. That dried up like a faucet with a slow, steady leak until the pipes just ran dry. At first, I thought it was stress. Claire had a demanding job in event planning. Long hours, late nights, high-end clients who acted like royalty. I tried to be understanding. I didn't press. That was my mistake. What kept me warm at night wasn't her body curled beside me. It was routine. The familiar scent of her lavender lotion on the pillow. The sound of her light breathing beside me. I thought that was love holding us together. But now I realize it was autopilot. She was flying the plane, but her eyes were already scanning the skies for another runway. The affection vanished, but the spending? That didn't slow down. Our shared Amex card still saw life like it was clinging to its youth. New shoes, salon appointments, spa treatments, lunches at places I knew I hadn't taken her to. One Tuesday night, I got home a little early. Claire was in the bedroom, her laptop glowing in the dim light. She didn't hear me at first, her brows furrowed, her screen open to a site for luxury handbags. She clicked quickly when she saw me. Too quickly. Hey, I said, leaning in for a kiss. She turned her face just enough that my lips met her cheek. Hey, you're home early. Traffic was light, I said. Dinner plans? Not hungry, she said, barely looking at me. I had a big lunch. But the fridge was full of untouched leftovers I had brought home from work, and there was no takeout box in the trash. She hadn't eaten. Not at home, anyway. It got worse after that. I'd catch her in half smiles at her phone, tapping with fingers that once danced across my skin. She'd laugh at texts and then quickly lock the screen. When I asked what was funny, she'd wave it off. Just Laura being ridiculous again. Laura, her best friend, wasn't that funny. One night, she came home later than usual. Her cheeks flushed, her blouse unbuttoned just enough that it wasn't how she'd left. My gut told me something, but my mouth stayed shut. Instead, I watched. I started logging receipts. I opened our online banking app each night before bed, tracing the path of her day like breadcrumbs. A $36 charge at a wine bar downtown, not unusual, but at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Then another charge, a few hours later, at a boutique hotel's restaurant. Just 2 items on the receipt. No friends tagged on social media. No photos. No girls' night out chatter. I didn't want to be paranoid, but the evidence didn't care about how I felt. Then came the Friday she came home glowing. Literally glowing. Cheeks pink, hair tousled, body humming like she'd just stepped out of a sauna. I reached for her, half joking. You look relaxed. She slipped past me, that same cold smile. Just a great facial. Where? She paused, barely a beat. Serenity Spa. Laura and I went after work. Bit of a girl's day. Must have been great. You look amazing. She shrugged. Thanks. I watched her walk away. That little bounce in her step, that flushed skin, that wasn't a facial. That was post-sex glow. I knew it. My body knew it. Every muscle tensed. But I said nothing. Not yet. Instead, I logged into our Amex statement again that night. There it was, Serenity Spa, yes. But also a charge at a boutique wine shop on the other side of town, a hotel bar, and an Uber ride from a luxury apartment complex. No charges from Laura. No texts from Laura. Just Claire, gliding through our life, hiding in plain sight. The more she pulled away, the more I leaned in. Let's do something this weekend. I offered that Saturday morning. Dinner at Le Marais? Just the two of us? She hesitated. Oh, I think I promised to help Laura with her sister's baby shower. You know how she is. She always used Laura like that, like a human shield. I didn't believe it for a second. Next weekend then? Maybe, she said, not looking at me. That night, I lay awake while she showered. I listened to the water run, to the sound of her humming, something slow and sultry. She used to hum like that after we had sex, not after washing off a day of errands. I knew then. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had something more dangerous than proof. I had a gut that had stopped trusting her. And for a man like me, that was the beginning of the end. I reached for my phone. I created a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Claire. Then I started tracking, not just bank statements, but every purchase, every receipt, every GPS ping. I enabled detailed alerts from our card. I cross-referenced locations with timestamps. She had no idea, because Claire didn't think I'd care. She thought I'd keep paying the bills while she lived her secret life in the shadows. But the thing is, when a man stops feeling love, he doesn't always scream. He watches. He plans. And I was done being in the dark. The first lie came wrapped in silk. It was a Saturday morning when I noticed it, a $1,150 charge to Maison du Lune, a luxury spa downtown. Claire had mentioned a girls' retreat that weekend. She left early Friday afternoon, bags packed, kissed my cheek like a woman without secrets, and told me she'd be staying at a lakeside Airbnb 2 hours outside the city. "Laura's picking me up," she said. "We're going totally off the grid. No phone, no tech, just wine and face masks." I smiled like a fool and told her to enjoy herself. By Sunday night, she came back with glowing skin and a new necklace I hadn't seen before. Rose gold. Delicate. Probably expensive. When I asked where it came from, she laughed. "Oh, this?" she said, brushing it with her fingers. "A little boutique at the lake. We all bought something silly." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But when I checked the card charges later that night, the boutique name didn't match anything near the lake house address she gave me. In fact, none of the charges did. Instead, I saw the Maison du Lune spa charge, located smack in the middle of the city, 20 minutes from our house. Then came a $612 charge at Vernell Jewelers. Same day, a 2-night booking at the Pendry Hotel, one of the city's more elite stays, booked under Claire H. Whitmore, charged to our shared account. $984 for the suite, $80 for valet, $60 for breakfast room service, and a $14 charge to the mini bar for adult intimacy kit. Yeah, that last one hit me harder than I expected. My stomach turned. The receipts weren't just a paper trail. They were a blueprint of betrayal. She hadn't even left town, while I stayed home like a damn house pet, folding laundry, fixing the leaky kitchen tap, paying our bills. Claire was wrapped in plush white robes with someone else, clinking champagne flutes in king-sized beds I'd never touched. That night, I pulled up the Uber receipt. Pick up, the Pendry Hotel. Drop off, 917 Howard Avenue. I copied the address into Google Maps. It was a sleek high-rise, mostly rented by professionals and single types. I flipped through the location on Street View, studying the building like it owed me answers. But all it showed was a lobby, a doorman, and a quiet entrance to someone else's life, someone Claire was stepping into when she slipped out of mine. A man. It had to be. There was no other explanation. The intimacy kit, the hotel, the jewelry. No friend's weekend came with gifts like that. But I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I began to compile a quiet archive. I created spreadsheets. God help me, actual spreadsheets. I logged everything. Each date, each charge, cross-referenced with her excuses. Spa days that didn't match her calendar. Dinners on nights she claimed to be working late. Rideshare drop-offs that ended at addresses she never mentioned. There was a rhythm to her infidelity, I realized. Fridays, sometimes Thursdays, rarely weekends, unless she had a full cover story. Her favorite days to cheat were the ones I worked late. The nights I stayed at the office to wrap up numbers, trusting she was home watching Netflix or reading in the bath. The worst part? I had no idea who he was. Just that he had an address, a bed, and apparently, better jewelry taste than me. I started watching her more closely. She changed in small ways. Claire used to dress with understated confidence. Simple blouses, clean lines, soft colors. Now there were plunging necklines, silk fabrics that clung a little tighter, high heels for no reason. I'd compliment her, and she'd brush it off, like I wasn't the one she wanted to impress anymore. Her phone, always on silent. She never left it unattended. Even in the shower, it followed her. If I so much as glanced toward the screen when it lit up, she tilted it away like a magician hiding a trick. One night, I tried something. She fell asleep early, wine glass half finished on the nightstand. I waited. 30 minutes of her slow, steady breathing. Then I quietly slipped her phone off the charger and walked to the kitchen like I was getting water. Of course, it was locked. Face ID. But earlier that week, I noticed a new trick in iOS settings, a feature to mirror recent notifications to an iPad. And I had one. I powered it on, linked our Apple ID, and waited. It worked. The text didn't say much at first. Just enough. Derek, next Friday still on. Claire, I'm counting down the minute. Derek, bring the silk one again. You know the one I like. Claire, naughty. I'm already wearing it under my robe right now. Want a peek? My breath caught. That was it. A name. A digital fingerprint. An entire alternate life. I put the iPad down. My hands trembled. I didn't smash anything. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I sat there for 30 minutes, staring at the kitchen tiles, wondering what version of Claire she showed this man. Did she laugh at his jokes? Did she let her guard down the way she used to with me? Back when we were still hungry for each other? I wasn't even angry yet. I was numb. But now I had a name, Derek, and I had an address. 917 Howard Avenue. A thought started forming, slow and deliberate. I wasn't going to confront her in a blaze of rage. No, I needed her to feel the unraveling, the same way I had. I needed her to sit in the discomfort of her lies being peeled back one by one, like petals on a flower she thought would never wilt. The affair wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. She'd stolen time, intimacy, love, and paid for it all with my wallet. That was about to change. I was going to stop funding her affair, and I wasn't going to tell her. I was going to let her find out the hard way. There's something strangely intimate about holding someone's phone while they sleep. It's like prying open a locked diary, except it vibrates with secrets they hoped would never surface. And as I stood barefoot in our dark kitchen, Claire asleep upstairs, her iPhone screen glowing faint blue in my hand, I realized I was finally seeing her for who she really was. I had waited for this moment. For weeks I'd watched from the sidelines. I logged her charges, tracked her Uber rides, read her flirtations on synced devices. But her actual phone? That was the final veil. And tonight, for the first time, she slipped. She fell asleep with it unlocked. Maybe she was exhausted. Maybe she thought I was asleep beside her. Maybe she just got cocky. But I watched her breathing slow, chest rising rhythmically beneath the soft linen comforter, and waited a full 10 minutes before I slid the phone from her hand. She didn't stir. Downstairs, I opened her Photos app first. It was all smiles and selfies on the surface. The kind she'd text me when we first dated. Claire with a latte. Claire with a fresh manicure. Claire in a sundress, hand on hip. But the further I scrolled, the more interesting it got. A hidden folder, locked behind a Face ID that, luckily, I could now bypass with her sleeping face if needed. My heart thumped like I was breaking into a vault. I tilted the screen just enough to cast her shadow over the lens, and click. It opened. Inside were exactly 38 photos. Claire in lingerie. Claire pouting at the camera. Claire topless in a hotel bathroom mirror. One picture showed her in that same royal blue robe I'd seen in the laundry a week ago. She told me it was from a girls' spa day. The image told me otherwise. Her hair was wet, makeup smudged, lips slightly parted, eyes half-lidded in post-sex haze. I couldn't look away. Every photo was time-stamped, and every timestamp lined up perfectly with the charges I'd logged over the last month. Then came the messages. Not in the main messages app. No, she was smarter than that, but not smarter than me. She used a secondary texting app, one designed for discreet conversations. I'd seen the icon before, white speech bubble, navy background. It always looked like a productivity app from a distance. But I knew better now. I opened it. Derek, still thinking about last weekend. Can't get the taste of you out of my mouth. Claire, you're bad. Derek, you love it. Admit it. Claire, I do. But don't text me until after 11. He's still suspicious. He. Not my husband. Not Mark. Just he. Like I was some shadowy figure in the background of her fantasy. Something to be avoided. A wallet with a pulse. I scrolled further. They'd planned everything meticulously. Derek was a mid-level executive at a marketing firm. Divorced. No kids. Lived alone in a luxury apartment. 917 Howard Avenue. He traveled often, but when he was in town, Claire practically lived at his place. One thread showed an itinerary. Friday to Sunday. Dinner at Slate and Ember. Hotel at the Pindry again. And, this part chilled me, matching spa appointments. They weren't even pretending to hide anymore. Claire, I'll say I'm going to Sonoma with Laura again. He never questions girl trips. Derek, good. Because I booked the same suite. And I want you in those heels again. No panties. I should have been boiling with rage. I should have thrown the phone at the wall or gone upstairs and shaken her awake. But I didn't. I just sat there. Because the truth wasn't new. The affair didn't shock me anymore. What'd get me was the way she erased me. The way she compartmentalized our life like I was a side character in her main story. Like she could fuck someone else and still expect me to fix the gutters. That's when I knew I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to end her comfort first. Let her feel the edges of her decisions. Let her reach for the luxury I'd provided and find nothing there. I put the phone down gently, making sure it was angled exactly as she'd left it. She never even stirred. Her face was soft, peaceful, like someone who believed she'd won. But I wasn't out of cards yet. By the following afternoon, I had pulled all our financial access into my hands. She still had her little personal account, the one I topped up each month like an allowance. But the cards that paid for hotels, spa days, expensive dinners, they were mine. And soon, they'd be dust. That Monday, I called the bank. I'd like to freeze our joint credit card, I told the agent. Fraud concerns. Yes, Mr. Whitmore. Would you like to reissue a new one for yourself only? Yes, I said. And cancel the supplemental. Claire Whitmore's. I hesitated for half a second. Then, yes. Done. I closed our shared checking account next, shifting the funds into a new one, solo, secure. Auto payments for utilities? Gone. Streaming services? Disconnected. Even her gym membership, the one with the rooftop pool she loved, declined. I felt like a ghost moving through her systems, flipping invisible switches, shutting off the power in her parallel universe. And still, I said nothing. That Friday, she came home from a hair appointment, tossing her keys into the bowl near the door. You'll love this color, she called. A little lighter. Perfect for wine country. I smiled faintly from the kitchen. Big weekend planned. She nodded. Sonoma. Same Airbnb. Laura's bringing her cousin this time. Sounds fun, I said, sipping my coffee. Be safe. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs to pack. By 4 p.m., she was gone. By 4:15, I logged into our Amex app again. Declined. The spa she'd scheduled, declined. The Uber she called from the hotel, declined. The hotel card she tried to swipe for a $938 room, declined. And the best part? She hadn't even texted me yet. She'd texted Laura. Claire, hey, can you cover me? Card's acting weird. Laura, you sure you brought the right one? Claire, yeah, the one Mark pays. Ugh, I'll text him. But she didn't. Because she knew. She knew I knew. And that silence was better than any confrontation. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to yell. I had her silence. And her silence told me everything. The funny thing about sabotage is how clean it feels when it's done right. No shouting, no broken plates, no late-night arguments slung through bedroom walls. Just a quiet flip of a switch. One moment, everything works. The next, total blackout. Claire had no idea the walls were crumbling. Not yet. After I shut down the credit cards, I moved fast. Step 1, utilities. I logged into the joint online account for power, gas, water, internet. Every convenience she took for granted, and unlinked her email, her phone number, her name. Then I changed all the passwords, rerouted all the statements to a private inbox, and canceled the auto pay she thought was eternal. The final touch? I set the payment date after her girls' weekend. Let the lights flicker off while she soaked in rose petals and lies. Step 2, subscriptions. Spotify, Netflix, DoorDash, her yoga app. Gone. Every single thing she touched daily now responded with a screen saying, payment failed. Update your billing. Step 3, the car. We'd leased her BMW under my name. She insisted on the white X5, something professional but still sexy. I logged into the account, removed her from access, and reported a temporary security concern. The dealership locked it from app access, meaning no GPS, no unlock from phone. If she needed to get in, she'd need the physical key, which, conveniently, was in my pocket. Step 4 was personal. The cell plan. It took one call to Verizon. I'd like to suspend one of the lines on my family plan, I said. Temporarily. Phone was lost. I'll reactivate once it's found. The rep didn't even ask many questions. Probably happens all the time with parents and teens. Line suspended. Claire's connection to the digital world, dead in the water. And yet, I still hadn't said a word. I wasn't doing this out of anger anymore. That part had burned up already. This was something else. Precision. Discipline. A controlled burn. The kind you set to clear a forest of rot. Friday night came and went. No calls. No texts. I half expected something. Maybe a flurry of frantic messages from a hotel landline. Maybe a voicemail. But the silence was as complete as the shutdown. Claire had stepped into her weekend of sin like a queen. She just hadn't realized her kingdom had gone bankrupt. Saturday morning, I got the first ping. A fraud alert from the spa. She tried to rebook the full service package, $428 plus tip, but the card had bounced. Twice. I imagined her face, tight-lipped and flush with embarrassment, asking the receptionist to try again, to run it manually. Maybe even saying, "There must be a mistake. It always works." Then another alert. Uber declined. She was stuck. She never called. I made coffee, walked out onto the back deck, and let the warm air fill my lungs. It had been a long time since I felt still, peaceful, not stupid, not hollow, not used, just aware. This was mine now. The silence. The clarity. I didn't need to catch her in bed. I didn't need to punch Derek or scream in a hotel lobby. I had her world in my hand, and I was slowly removing her fingers from it. At 3:42 p.m., I got a Venmo notification. Claire Whitmore requested $240. 00 for hotel plus cab. No text. No explanation. Just that pathetic little heart. I stared at it. She hadn't even tried to explain yet. No confession. No apology. Just a digital handout, expecting me to fill the gap like always. I declined the request. No message. 2 hours later, another came. Claire Whitmore requested $600. 00. Will explain later. Emergency. Declined. Then a third, smaller, more desperate. $72. 00. Please just send this much. I'll pay you back. Declined. She was spiraling. I could feel it through the screen. Each request was a rung lower on her dignity ladder, her pride slipping rung by rung. I let her sweat. By Sunday night, I still hadn't heard her voice. I imagined her in the hotel lobby, trying to call Derek. Maybe he came. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he liked her most when I was paying the tab. Let's see how charming she is without my money. Monday morning, I acted like it was any other day. Got up, showered, brewed my coffee. The only difference? I didn't wake Claire with a good morning kiss. She still wasn't home. But at 9:03 a.m., her contact photo lit up my phone. She was finally calling. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. "Hey," I said, voice calm. Controlled. "Mark," her voice cracked. "I don't know what's going on." "You tell me," I said. I was just about to ask the same. "My card's not working. My phone shut off. I had to borrow someone's to call you." I don't know if our account got hacked or... "No," I said, cutting her off. "Not hacked." Silence. "Then why?" she started. "I know about Derek." Her breath caught. I heard it. The full body freeze, the lungs locking up. She didn't deny it. Not even a whisper of protest. "You've been draining my account to fund your affair," I continued. So I turned off the tap. Mark, I can explain. Please." "I didn't mean." "You meant it," I said. "Every dinner. Every spa day. Every hotel bed. Tears. Or at least the performance of tears. I was lonely," she said. "You've been so distant. So focused on work. I didn't know how to tell you I needed." "Needed what?" I asked. "Another man? Or just my money to get to him?" Silence. "I didn't think it would go this far," she whispered. "It always goes this far," I replied. There was a pause. Then, softly, "Can I come home?" Home. The word sat like ice on my tongue. "You'll have to figure that out," I said. "The BMW's locked. Your phone's off. Hotel's unpaid. Call Derek. I'm sure he'll pick you up." "Mark, don't do this. Please." "Already done," I said. "Good luck." I hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. She came home like a hurricane pretending to be a breeze. I was in the kitchen when the front door swung open, hinges creaking like they, too, were tired of her performance. Claire walked in with her overnight bag hanging off one shoulder, her makeup smudged, and her hair pulled back into a defeated bun. Her eyes found me instantly, wide, puffy, red-rimmed, and full of performance. "Mark," she said, soft, rehearsed, like she was stepping into a role and wanted to nail her first line. I didn't speak. She dropped the bag by the door and stepped into the living room like it still belonged to her. Like nothing had happened. Like the truth hadn't spilled out across every line of code and credit swipe. She stood there, watching me from behind the couch, hands fidgeting. "I couldn't even get an Uber this morning," she said, voice cracking. "Everything declined. I had to take a bus. A damn bus." "Sounds rough," I said. She blinked at me, thrown by my tone. She was expecting anger, accusations. She wasn't prepared for indifference. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know what else to say." "You could try the truth," I replied. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. "It wasn't what you think." "Then what was it?" I stepped closer. "Because what I think is that my wife's been screwing another man for months, using my money to fund it. Am I close?" She flinched. "No. Well, yes, but it wasn't serious. It was never supposed to be this." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "This? You mean the part where you got caught?" "I didn't plan it, Mark. You planned the hotels, the dinners, the matching spa appointments. You planned all that pretty damn well." She winced and sank onto the armrest of the couch, rubbing her temples. "It just happened." "No," I said, stepping in. "It didn't just happen. You didn't trip and fall into a 4-star suite with champagne and an intimacy kit. You didn't accidentally send him lingerie selfies. You didn't stumble onto his dick." "Jesus, Mark," she hissed. "I'm not going to pretty it up for you, Claire. You fucked another man. You lied to me. And you used my card like I was sponsoring the whole affair." She stood now, voice rising. "You think I wanted to feel this way? Like I'm invisible in my own house?" I stared at her. "No, I think you wanted to feel important, desired, maybe even reckless. But instead of talking to me, your husband, you found Derek." Her face twisted at the name. Shame? Anger? Regret? I wasn't sure. "I didn't love him," she whispered. "Did you love me?" Silence. That was answer enough. "I was lonely," she said. "You were always working. You stopped looking at me like you used to. I felt like furniture. Like you only saw me when something needed fixing." I nodded slowly. "You know what's funny? I was fixing everything. The house. The bills. Your life. I didn't ask you to. No. You just expected it." She crumbled into the couch, head in her hands. "I didn't know how to stop." "That's the difference between you and me," I said. "I did." She looked up, eyes wild. "Stop what?" "Believing in this marriage." Her breath caught. "I've been watching it decay for months," I continued. "Every time you flinched away from my touch. Every night you turned over without a word. Every bullshit girl's trip with spa charges and dinner for two." Her lips trembled. "I didn't know how to tell you. So you let me fund your silence." Tears began to roll down her face. I didn't flinch. I didn't move. She had chosen this collapse. All I did was pull the last pin from the grenade. "What now?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Now." I tilted my head. "You figure it out. With whoever you've been texting at 2 in the morning." Her face froze. I had never seen her go so still, so pale, so instantly and visibly shattered. The mask slipped completely. You saw that." "Every word," I said. "Every emoji. Every plan." She swallowed, eyes wide. "Mark, I don't need your explanations. I already lived through the lies. I want the truth to sting." She stood again, arms limp at her sides, like she wanted to reach for me but didn't have the right anymore. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You lost me a long time ago," I replied. "You just kept using my money to keep pretending you hadn't." That broke her. She sat back down, this time not with the poise of a woman trying to salvage control, but like someone who'd just realized the ship was already sunk. The silence between us stretched long and wide. Finally, she looked up, voice barely audible. "Is it over?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned and walked to the counter, picked up a folder I'd prepared days ago, and set it on the coffee table. Inside, printed receipts. Photos. Screenshots. Bank statements. Everything. "You tell me," I said. She didn't open it. Just stared at the cover like it was radioactive. "I'll sleep in the guest room," she mumbled. "You won't sleep here." Her eyes shot up. "What? You'll go to your sister's. Or wherever. But you're not staying here tonight." "This is my house too." "Not anymore." I left her sitting there, broken, finally alone in the ruins she'd built herself. That night, I changed the locks. I was sipping coffee when the doorbell rang. It was a calm Tuesday morning, sky overcast, soft drizzle painting the windows with streaks of gray. The silence in the house was unfamiliar, almost too still. No sound of Claire shuffling around upstairs, no forced conversation over toast. Just the low hum of my coffee maker and the rustle of my breath. Then, ding-dong. I didn't rush to the door. I didn't need to. I already knew who it was. I opened it slowly, letting the full weight of the moment stretch across the air like a tension wire. There he stood. Derek. He was taller than I expected. Broad shoulders. Nice jacket. Designer boots. The kind of man who wore expensive cologne and counted macros. His hair was still damp, probably from the rain, slicked back like he'd practiced the look in a mirror. Hey, he said, the word cautious. You must be Mark. I took a long sip of coffee before answering. And you must be the man who's been fucking my wife. He blinked. To his credit, he didn't deny it. His eyes dipped for a second, just a flicker of guilt or maybe calculation. And then he said, Can we talk? I'm listening. He glanced past me, clearly expecting Claire. I could see the moment he realized she wasn't coming to the door. I came to check on her, he said. She's not answering her phone. She didn't come into work. I thought maybe. She's not here. I cut in. Pause. His jaw flexed. Where is she? I smirked. Interesting question. See, I used to ask the same thing every Friday. You probably had a better answer back then. He stiffened. I didn't come here to fight, he said. Good, I replied. Because you wouldn't win. I stepped aside. He hesitated, then walked in. I let him stand in the foyer like a guest, even though he had entered this house 1,000 times already. If not physically, then in fantasy. He probably imagined himself here, drinking wine with Claire, laughing in the living room, screwing her in our bed while I slaved away at work like an idiot. I closed the door behind him. I'm not proud of this, he said. What happened between us? You should be, I said, walking past him. You gave her something I couldn't, the illusion that she was still desired. He followed me into the kitchen, glancing around like he was trying to find traces of her, photos, perfume, anything that would anchor him. She told me things were over between you, he said. She said she was trapped in a cold marriage, that you were distant, that there was no affection. I nodded slowly. You know what's funny? She told me the same things about you when she got back. His brows furrowed. What? She said it didn't mean anything, that it was just about feeling alive, that she wasn't sure why she even did it. He looked like he'd been slapped. I set my coffee down and picked up a manila envelope from the counter. I dropped it on the table between us. Here. He frowned. What's this? Itemized summary. Every charge, every receipt, every hotel, dinner, Uber, lingerie set. All of it. Paid by me. He opened it slowly, flipping through the pages. You see that necklace? I asked, pointing to a highlighted line. Rose gold. $382. She said she bought it at some boutique on a lake trip. That was for your anniversary, wasn't it? He didn't answer. He was too busy scanning the spreadsheet. I leaned against the counter. The thing is, Derek, I don't care if you screwed her. That's not the part that burns. People cheat. Lust is cheap. What gets me is that I funded it. I paid for the betrayal. He looked up, his mouth tight. I didn't know. I believe you, I said. You were just the fun part. I was the one keeping the lights on. I didn't ask her to lie, he said. No, but you didn't mind the benefits. He closed the envelope and slid it back across the table. So what now, he asked. I shrugged. She's not here. She's with her sister, probably crying on a couch and wondering how her fairy tale turned into this. You can go see her. I'm not stopping you. He hesitated. You're letting her go that easily? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Oh, Derek. I let her go the moment she became someone I wouldn't recognize. The only thing I'm holding on to now is my dignity. He stood there for a long moment, his jaw tight. I think she loved you, he said quietly. No, I replied. She loved the idea of me. The security, the house, the safety net. But love doesn't hide in hotels and send heart emojis to strangers while their husband pays the bill. He looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Do you want her? I asked. He blinked. What? She's yours. Take her. Move her into your apartment. Pay for her spa days. Listen to her excuses. Let her lock her phone around you. I'm done. He took a deep breath, exhaled, and finally nodded. Okay. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. I didn't expect this, he said. No one ever expects to meet the man who actually kept her warm when you were just keeping her entertained. He opened the door and stepped out into the rain. I watched from the window as he walked down the driveway, envelope tucked under his arm like it weighed 100 pounds. He didn't look back. I didn't expect him to. That night, Claire texted. Claire, did Derek come by? Me, yes. Claire, what did you say? Me, that you're his problem now. She didn't reply, and for the first time, the silence felt like closure. She showed up the next evening, mascara already smudged before she'd even knocked. I watched her from the living room window for a solid minute before answering the door. She looked small on the porch, wrapped in a long coat over what had probably been her office clothes, only now wrinkled, worn, tired. She was holding her purse like it contained her last ounce of pride. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Mark, she said, voice trembling. Please. What do you want? She blinked, caught off guard. Maybe she thought I'd fold. Maybe she imagined me softening the second she looked like a victim. But I'd spent weeks building a steel spine. There was nothing left to bend. I just want to talk, she said, wringing her hands. Can we please talk? I nodded once and let her in. She walked into the living room slowly, like a tenant returning to a home she'd been evicted from. Her eyes flicked around like she expected things to have changed. Maybe she thought I'd packed her things already. Or burned them. I hadn't. But I had moved her wedding photo off the mantel. That was deliberate. She sat on the edge of the couch, her coat still wrapped tight like armor. I didn't sit. I stayed standing across the room, arms folded. So I said, talk. I'm sorry, she whispered. You've said that. I mean it this time. You meant it last time too. She winced. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I didn't respond. She looked up, desperate. I didn't start this to destroy us. I didn't plan any of it. You planned the lies, I said. You planned the weekends. You planned the receipts to go unnoticed. Tears welled in her eyes. I was lost, Mark. No, I snapped. You weren't lost. You were lonely. And instead of talking to me, you went looking for a thrill. She covered her mouth like she was trying not to cry. I felt invisible. And instead of saying that, I continued. You decided to make me invisible too. You erased me. From your bed. From your plans. From your decisions. I didn't stop loving you, she said. I raised an eyebrow. You sure? I was confused. You were careless. She looked down, fingers gripping the hem of her coat. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. I shook my head slowly. You miss what I gave you. Stability. Safety. Money. The man who made your life easy while you made mine a lie. That's not true, she cried. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the folder she'd refused to open last time, and dropped it beside her. Open it. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she pulled back the flap. Pages of documentation spilled into her lap. Transactions. Screenshots. Photos she probably forgot even existed. Her affair in black and white. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the evidence. I don't know who I am anymore, she said, voice barely above a whisper. You're the woman who convinced herself she was entitled to everything. Attention, excitement, luxury, without giving anything back. She closed the folder, tears streaming now. Derek's gone, she said. He won't answer my calls. He said this got too messy. I let out a bitter chuckle. Of course he did. He was in it for the fantasy. He wanted the wife who snuck away for him, not the woman sobbing on a couch with ruined credit and no fallback plan. I didn't think he'd just vanish, she muttered. That's what happens when your safety net gets cut. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. I ruined everything. Yes, I said flatly. You did. She looked up at me, eyes swollen. Is it really over? I sat across from her, leaned forward slightly. You don't get to ask that like it's your call. She looked stricken. You spent months deciding what our marriage was worth. Now it's my turn. She wiped her face with her sleeve. What are you going to do? I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said. There's no coming back from this. And the sooner we stop pretending otherwise, the cleaner this can end. Her breath hitched. I can't afford anything on my own, she said, almost to herself. I nodded. That's the cost of choice. Actions have price tags too. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. The Mark who bought her roses every Friday, who ran errands so she could sleep in, who paid for her to chase comfort. He was gone. This version, he had receipts. I don't hate you, I said after a moment. She looked up in disbelief. I don't, I repeated. But I also don't pity you. And I sure as hell don't love you. She stood, slowly, the folder in her hand, pressed tight against her chest like a confession she couldn't bury. Can I come back to get the rest of my things? You can text me a time, I said. I won't be here. She nodded, her lip trembling, and then she walked to the door. Just before stepping out, she turned around one last time. I did love you, Mark. I stared at her for a long moment. No, Claire, I said. You loved having me. And then I closed the door behind her. Filing for separation wasn't dramatic. It was mechanical. The lawyer, a soft-spoken woman named Terry, asked me if I wanted to pursue immediate divorce or give Claire a window to respond to the petition. I chose the window, not out of mercy, just control. I wanted everything to be clean, clinical, measured. She asked if there was a prenuptial agreement. There wasn't. Claire and I married when we were broke and idealistic. I was still climbing out of student loans. She was just launching her career in event planning. We believed in trust, in building together. The irony tasted bitter. But Terry wasn't fazed. She looked through the financial documents I brought in, spreadsheets, receipts, tax returns, shared assets. She read in silence, pen clicking against her pad every few minutes. When she finished, she leaned back and gave a slow nod. You've been carrying the financial weight of this marriage for years. I nodded. If she fights this, she might try to claim alimony. She'll have to prove need. Terry smiled. Oh, she'll have need, but no leverage. She slid the folder back toward me. We'll file and freeze all joint assets going forward. I signed the paperwork without ceremony. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. No checking her location. No listening for late-night texts. No analyzing her tone over dinner. Just silence. Stillness. The next day, she called. I got served, she said, voice brittle. I know, I replied. You're really doing this? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Can we talk? Please. One more time. In person. No. Silence again. I didn't think you'd go through with it, she said softly. Why? Because I stayed silent while you cheated? Because I didn't scream when you lied to my face? No, she whispered. Because I thought. I don't know. That maybe I still mattered. I didn't respond. Because the truth was, she didn't. Not anymore. She hung up without another word. 2 weeks passed. The separation filing triggered a freeze on our joint accounts and credit. Claire's world, which once ran like clockwork on the foundation I built, started to slow, then stall, then grind to a screeching halt. She called again. Mark, the rent on my sister's place is due. She wants me to contribute this month. Talk to your job. I lost it. Of course she did. Her firm had been lenient for a while, but eventually, even well-crafted lies can't mask flakiness. She'd taken too many off-the-grid Fridays, too many last-minute absences for spa days and family emergencies. They let me go last Monday, she admitted. I haven't had interviews since. What about Derek? Her silence told me everything. He ghosted after I moved in, she finally said. I texted. I called. He blocked me. I didn't say I told her so. I didn't need to. You have money, Mark, she said, voice tightening. You don't have to be cruel. This isn't cruelty, I said. It's accountability. You're punishing me. No, life is punishing you. I'm just no longer shielding you from the consequences. She sniffled. I gave you the best years of my life. And I gave you the best version of mine, I replied. You wasted it. I hung up. A few days later, I heard from a mutual friend, Laura, ironically the same woman Claire had used as her decoy. She called me unexpectedly one afternoon while I was at the gym. Hey, she said, cautious. I don't want to step into your business, but Claire's not doing well. I said nothing. She's been sleeping on my couch since her sister kicked her out. She barely eats. She's applying to jobs, but has no car now, no references. She's falling apart. She built the tower, I said. It's not my fault if she never reinforced the foundation. Laura sighed. She said you were cold, that you didn't even try to fix things. I laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Ask her how many months I begged for attention, for intimacy, for honesty. Ask her how many times I offered to go to therapy before she decided another man was a better fix. There was a pause. Then, fair enough. That evening, Claire texted me. Claire, I don't have a place to go. I don't have anything left. Me, you have your choices. Live in them. Claire, you don't care at all, do you? Me, I care. Just not in the way you want anymore. She didn't reply after that. I went through the formal process of changing names on bills, titles, property. Our home was already in my name. The car lease? Transferred solely to me. Credit cards were closed, credit reports updated. I watched as my life shed the last remnants of us like dead skin. The only thing left was her stuff. Boxes stacked in the garage. I texted her one final time. Me, your things will be in the garage until Friday. After that, they're getting donated. Claire, fine. She came that Thursday. I didn't speak to her. I didn't even come outside. I watched from a window as she opened the garage door, her movement slow, resigned. She packed the boxes into a borrowed sedan, one by one. No tears, no pleading, just a woman unraveling. When the car pulled out of the driveway and turned the corner, I exhaled. And for the first time since all this began, I felt truly alone. Not the kind of alone that stings. The kind that frees. The first thing I noticed was the quiet. Not the hollow silence that had crept into the house before Claire left. This was different. This was peace. Stillness without tension. The kind that lets your shoulders fall a little lower, your breath go a little deeper. I didn't expect healing to feel like this. I thought it would be loud, triumphant, angry, a montage of revenge and transformation. But instead, it was slow, subtle, real. It started with small things. I got rid of the bed. The one Claire and I had shared for 7 years. Too many of them sexless. Too many with her curled away like I didn't exist. I didn't burn it or throw it out in some symbolic rage. I just listed it on Facebook Marketplace. A young couple came to pick it up, wide-eyed and excited. They didn't know its history. I didn't tell them. I bought a new one. Firmer, cleaner, unshared. I changed the sheets to a color she would have hated, dark navy. I liked it. That was enough. Next came the gym. I'd been paying for a membership I rarely used. Work always came first. Then obligations. Then, when Claire started pulling away, I stopped going altogether. I didn't have the energy to better myself when I was busy being ignored. But now, the evenings were mine again. I started showing up 3 times a week. Then 4. The first few weeks were rough. My muscles remembered their limits. My lungs reminded me of how long I'd let them shrink. But soon, I felt different. Stronger. More present in my body. More in control. It wasn't about getting revenge fit. I didn't imagine running into Claire looking shredded and smug. This wasn't for her. It was for me. For the man who used to care how he felt when he looked in the mirror. By the 4th week, I started sleeping better. And with that sleep came dreams again. Ones that weren't soaked in betrayal or surveillance or the sound of her laughing at texts I wasn't allowed to see. I started meeting friends for drinks again. Not couples dinners. Not polite brunches. Just real, old friends. People I hadn't spoken to much while Claire was busy curating our social calendar. Now, I was the one reaching out. One of those nights changed everything. Her name was Emma. We worked in the same building, different departments. We'd crossed paths before, an elevator here, a mutual project email there, but never much more. She had kind eyes. The kind that made you feel like she was actually listening, not just waiting to talk. We bumped into each other in the break room one afternoon. I was microwaving leftovers. She was pouring coffee. "You look different," she said casually. "Thanks," I said, then hesitated. That a good different or a midlife crisis different? She smiled. "Good. Like you finally exhaled after holding your breath for a long time." It hit me harder than I expected. She didn't ask what happened. Didn't dig. Just offered a warmth that didn't feel like pity. The next time we saw each other, I asked if she wanted to grab lunch. It turned into coffee, then a walk during lunch breaks, then drinks after work. It wasn't instant. It wasn't cinematic. It was careful, real, and easy. She didn't flirt aggressively or play games. She just was. Steady. Funny. Curious. The kind of woman who laughed without checking to see if you were watching. Who spoke like everything she said mattered, but didn't need applause to validate it. And the strangest part? I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Because I knew I hadn't left anything unfinished. I hadn't walked away from Claire with anything still owed. She'd taken more than her share, and I had given her the chance to fix it. She didn't. Emma was new. Clean. No ghosts between us. One night, as we sat in a booth at a quiet bar, she tilted her head and said, "You're very calm for someone who's been through a divorce." I chuckled. "You should have seen me 2 months ago." What changed? I thought about it. I stopped hoping for closure from the person who broke me. I said, and started giving it to myself. She smiled. "That's rare. Pain teaches you what patience never could." She touched my hand. Just lightly. No expectations, no performance. It was the first time in years I'd felt genuine connection. Not obligation. Not ritual. Just real interest. When she leaned in and kissed me at the end of the night, I didn't overthink it. I didn't question whether I was ready or if it was too soon. I just let it happen. Because for the first time in a long time, I wanted something for myself. Something simple. Honest. The next morning, I woke up feeling new. Not whole. Not yet. But rebuilding. Brick by brick. By week 6 post-separation, I was meeting with Terry again to finalize the asset split. Claire had finally accepted the terms. She couldn't afford to fight them. Her lawyer had likely told her she'd get crushed if she tried. She walked away with a small lump sum and nothing else. No alimony. No property. Just enough to survive for a while. Maybe enough to restart. But not enough to rewrite the past. I didn't feel vindictive. Just done. I left her number in my phone in case of emergencies, but I never used it. She texted once. Just a single line. Claire, I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a while. Then I deleted it. No response. Because the truth was, I was happy. Not wildly. Not recklessly. Not in some social media post sort of way. Just content. At peace. And that peace? It was mine now. She knocked on my door just past 8 p.m. I wasn't expecting company. Emma had just left 20 minutes earlier. She had work in the morning, and we'd spent the evening cooking together. Real cooking, not takeout and couch silence like my old life. Music in the background. Laughing. The kind of night that made me feel chosen, not tolerated. So when the knock came, I assumed it was a neighbor. Maybe a package mix-up. I opened the door without checking. And there she was. Claire. She looked thinner than I remembered. Not in a model kind of way. More like life had chewed on her and spit her out. Her once perfect hair was tied into a low, messy knot. No makeup. No designer handbag. She looked plain, real, in a way she never allowed herself to before. Hi, she said softly, eyes glancing past me, like maybe she expected someone else to answer. Claire. My voice didn't shake. What are you doing here? She took a deep breath, shoulders trembling slightly. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't step aside. Her lips twitched, like she was about to cry, but held it in. Can I come in? Just for a minute. I hesitated, then moved back wordlessly. She stepped in like she was walking through a museum of her past life. Her eyes darted to the kitchen, the living room, the new pictures on the walls. A pair of wine glasses sat in the sink, a bottle of red still open on the counter. Her gaze lingered on that. You've redecorated, she said. I didn't respond. She walked slowly to the couch and sat like she was waiting for permission. I didn't give any, but I didn't stop her either. I saw you, she said suddenly. Last weekend. I frowned. Where? Downtown. At that outdoor bar on Hillcrest. You were with her. Emma. She nodded. She's pretty. She's kind, I said. And honest. Claire winced at that, but said nothing. There was a long pause before she finally whispered, I miss this house. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the house I paid for? I mean us, she said quickly, looking up. What we had. I let out a slow breath. You don't miss me. You miss the version of yourself you were when you lived here. Comfortable, taken care of, protected. You miss the safety, not the person. That's not true. Yes, it is. Because when you had me, when I was showing up for you day after day, you wanted someone else. You chose someone else. She rubbed her hands together, restless. Derek wasn't what I thought. He never was. She looked at me, tears brimming. I made a mistake. You made dozens of them. Over months. I thought he loved me. And now that he doesn't, you've circled back to the man who paid the bills. She shook her head. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said. And I'm not your parachute anymore. A tear slipped down her cheek. I don't want your money. Good, I said, standing. Because you're not getting it. I just... She stood too, voice shaking. I wanted to say I'm sorry. That I think about you every day. That I remember everything you did for me. Every time you stayed late at work to give me freedom. Every gift. Every small thing I didn't thank you for. You didn't just forget to thank me, I said quietly. You punished me for loving you. She sobbed now, shoulders shaking, breath catching. I thought I needed excitement, she whispered. But what I needed was stability. Safety. You. No, I replied. You needed to grow the hell up. She swallowed, blinking back tears. I'm not asking you to take me back, she said. I just needed you to know. I see it now. I see what I threw away. I crossed my arms. You had someone who loved you even when you stopped trying. And you chose someone who only wanted you when you were pretending to be someone else. She looked broken. I miss being yours, she said. I stared at her. And then, gently, but firmly, I said, you weren't mine. You were my responsibility. That's not the same thing. She covered her mouth, trying to hold back a fresh wave of crying. I walked over to the door and opened it. The cold night air swept in. You should go. She nodded slowly, wiping her cheeks. I hope someday you'll forgive me. I already have, I said. But forgiveness doesn't come with a key. She stepped out slowly, pausing on the porch. Goodbye, Mark. Goodbye, Claire. And then she walked down the driveway. Alone, shoulders curled inward like she could fold herself into the night and disappear. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against the frame. Emma texted me 10 minutes later. Emma, made it home safe. The morning after Claire came to the door was quiet. Clean. No lingering guilt. No what-ifs. Just a strange kind of calm that settled into my chest like something had finally snapped into place rather than apart. For the first time in over a year, I woke up without wondering what I'd missed. What lie I hadn't caught. What smile she gave someone else while I was paying the cable bill. The past wasn't chasing me anymore. It was behind me. I made eggs and toast while sunlight broke through the kitchen window. I stood in front of the stove barefoot, music playing low, and I realized, this is what mine feels like. Not shared, not negotiated, just mine. My house, my food, my playlist, my peace. It wasn't about revenge anymore. Revenge is loud, vengeful, short-lived. This was something else. Sovereignty. I'd rebuilt my life brick by brick, and now I was living in something I created, not something I maintained for someone else's comfort. Emma came by that evening. She didn't ask about Claire. She never did. She didn't need me to explain my past because she was too interested in my present. We cooked again, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, nothing fancy, and we ate on the back deck under a string of lights I'd installed myself the weekend before. She ran her fingers along the rim of her wine glass and asked, "So, what's next for you?" I thought about it for a second. "Freedom," I said. She tilted her head, smiling. "That's not a plan. It's better than a lie." She laughed. "Fair. I could have kissed her then. But I didn't. I just looked at her, really looked, and thought, this is what mutuality feels like. Not performance. Not debt. Just two people showing up for each other with no mask, no manipulation." Later that week, I got the final divorce paperwork. Claire didn't contest anything. Her signature sat beside mine. Small, stiff, but final. It was over. 7 years. 7 years of love, resentment, distance, deception, all condensed into a stapled document and a county seal. I took the papers and filed them away in a fireproof safe. Not because I ever wanted to revisit them, but because it felt right to contain it. To store the past where it couldn't spill back into my daily life. And then I moved on. I started traveling again, short trips, just for me. Places I used to talk about with Claire, but we never actually visited because there was always something more important to buy. New boots, a bigger TV, a vacation she wanted to take with the girls that turned out to be something else entirely. But now, I chose where I went. I chose when. I didn't have to check with anyone, run it through anyone's filters, make it about anyone else's comfort. I went hiking in Oregon, took a weekend in Austin, saw old friends in Chicago I hadn't seen since college. Every step felt like peeling off another layer of the life I'd worn for too long. One night, in a rooftop bar downtown, Emma leaned against me and said, "You seem lighter every time I see you." I smiled. "That's because I stopped carrying someone else's weight." She nodded, thoughtful. "You think you'll ever see her again?" "Probably," I said. "It's a small city." "And what would you say?" I thought about it. Not with anger, just curiosity. "I'd say thank you." Emma blinked. "Really?" "Yeah. Because without her betrayal, I'd still be living like a ghost in my own house. I'd still be convincing myself that a cold bed was just a phase. That one-sided affection was enough." I paused, then added, "She didn't break me. She uncovered me." Emma leaned in and kissed me. No drama, no fireworks, just something real, solid. And I realized that was enough. The next few months blurred together in the best way. Not because life was boring, but because it was stable, predictable, mine. I made new routines. Morning workouts, Sunday grocery runs, Even found a local bar trivia team that welcomed me in like I'd been there forever. No one asked about Claire. No one cared about who I'd been with. Only who I was now. And I was finally okay with answering that question. I was Mark, 39, divorced, in shape, stable, healing. No longer waiting for someone to notice he'd been bleeding in the background. No longer performing for the illusion of intimacy. I was no longer the man who paid to be ignored. I was the man who chose where his time, energy, and money went, and who he gave them to. The final test came one Thursday afternoon. I saw Claire at a grocery store. She was pushing a half-empty cart, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was shorter. She wore flat shoes, no jewelry. Her eyes met mine across the aisle, and for a moment, we both froze. Then she gave a small wave. I nodded once. Nothing more. She didn't approach. Neither did I. There was nothing to say. No rage. No bitterness. Just two people passing each other on opposite ends of a very long road. When I got to the register, I saw Emma's favorite wine on sale and threw a bottle into the cart. I walked out into the sunlight and didn't look back. Because I wasn't her husband anymore. I wasn't anyone's fool. I was a man who finally understood that loyalty without reciprocity is a slow death. And I wasn't dying anymore. Not for anyone. Thanks for tonight. Me, glad. I needed it too. Emma, you okay? I stared at the screen for a second, then typed. Me, yeah? I just let go of something heavy. And I had. Because the version of Claire that showed up at my door wasn't the woman I'd married. She was the ghost of my generosity. And she was finally gone.